Ladies and gents, welcome back to another Engineers podcast. Today I'm joined by Kamil who's CTO at Xapo Bank. They are the world's first Bitcoin-enabled bank. We've been chatting offline now for the last 10 minutes, give or take, about crypto, Xapo, other businesses that are in the space. This is a really hot space at the moment, so I'm looking forward to the episode. I'm looking forward to getting a little bit into Xapo, their mission, what they've been building since 2013. And as always, we're going to be focusing on a security element in the crypto space, which I think these guys have done really, really well. So, Kamil, thanks for coming to join us. Massively appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Elliot. Really a
My
pleasure.
pleasure.
Looking forward to this one.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. We always start with your background. So kick us off. Who's Kamil?
I'm 18 years in technology space. So I started as an engineer, and my background was Java backend engineer. Then I moved into more of a big data world. Back then it was still called big data. Now it's just data. Nobody really uses that term anymore. So I spent a bit of time as what would be now called a data engineer. But then after around 7 years of that, I moved into leadership. So I, first was a tech lead for several years, and eventually I moved to a director of engineering in the previous job. It was also in my previous job where I first started to work in fintech space, and then 2.5, almost 3 years. So in December will be 3 years ago. I moved to Xapo. So again, I also joined initially as a director of engineering then, and then after a while I became a CTO of Xapo. So that's a short story.
Short and sweet. Talk to me about the role of CTO at a crypto native business and what that role actually looks like.
Yeah, I'm working in a space like that where it's still very, very, I would say it's still young, right? So there is a lot of innovation going on, and also with that, a lot of challenges, not only technological, but also, with legal challenges, compliance challenges. You need to be, as a licensed bank, you need to deal with all of that as well, from audits perspective as well. But as a CTO, I'm this kind of bridge between the business needs on one hand, and how the technology department aligns and fulfills those needs, right? So I take the needs, I look at what's really needed, where the company really wants to go strategically, and then I need to figure out with my teams, okay, how can we support that, and how can we align our priorities and objectives and OKRs to really empower that to the best of our ability. And this is what I'm focusing. So I'm really trying to be able to position myself where I can actually look at the technology department almost from a third person perspective, right? Like there is this kind of machine that I can look, because if I am too deep, and of course I am involved in day to day, but if I am too deep in day to day and I don't allow my, for example, directors of heads to do that, then I'm not able to evaluate this and have a perspective, right? Like step outside and see what is needed there, what can I challenge, what needs to be a bit disturbed, because I think that that's my role really.
Yeah. It's that ability to operate at 30,000 feet as an example, but get on the ground, get in the detail whenever needed. And I think credit to you, credit to other CTOs in the crypto space, it is an ever changing space and we're going to unravel that more and more. But you touched on it: compliance, legal, licensing changes frequently or projected to change. So it's a very, very fast moving industry in that sense.
Yes, and I think that is great that you said. On one hand, you need to operate in the bird's view, but then you need to be able to decide, okay, when do I focus on what and for how long? I think this is also a very important aspect. If you stay too long in a certain place, diving deep on that, then it can also transform into a bit of micromanagement. So you don't want that either. You want to empower your teams, but you need to also see that the teams are well off in the right direction, and then you can go back up and see, okay, where else can I focus on? I think that you need to balance the two. Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking offline, pre this, but Xapo were obviously, one of the first movers in their space. 2013 to go and start building a crypto native bank. Talk to me about who you are and what you're trying to build as in Xapo.
Yes. So Xapo is an interesting company in this sense that it started as something different, and then it transformed. It decided, it pivoted into a bank. So when we speak about early days, 2013, when the company was established, they were first a custodian, right? So they were not a bank, and I'm saying they because I wasn't there back then. So they were at some point. I don't want to guess. I don't want to make a mistake here, but I believe it was around 5 or 6% of the whole Bitcoin of the world was actually deposited with Xapo. I can't remember exactly, but it was one digit number, but it was high. It was very significant, right? So we had back then those the setup of bankers in Swiss Alps with multi-signature setup back then, cold wallets, hot wallets, and a lot of also institutional customers. And then at some point, our founder Wences, he decided that this is actually not aligned with his vision, the vision that he had initially, where he really wanted to serve retail customers. And he also felt like the future is in being licensed, because regulatory challenges actually, I mean, the space will want to regulate this. So this will come, and the guy can see behind corners in terms of vision. So he was right. This came, and we have seen what happened with some exchanges, right? They got into trouble. Binance had some challenges. FTX, collapse and things like that. So I think at the right moment, Xapo pivoted and actually started to work with the license, and they decided to do that in the Gibraltar um, um, uh, legal space, and that's why the headquarters is there. So yeah, so the pivot happened to actually off-board institutional customers, sell that part to Coinbase, and then build a bank, right? So build this a bit from scratch. So the app was built from scratch in a sense, and then you know the license was established. So Xapo actually acquired a real bank license, and then there is this combination of crypt of on one hand bank, and on the other hand VASP, where we can hold Bitcoin, but you as a user, you get a seamless experience in the app, where you get have both worlds blended together.
Yeah. This is why I love this podcast, because your funny reference, the founder can see behind corners. I love that the business has been able to pivot really successfully and be first movers in your space. It's phenomenal, really. So good for you guys. Like, credit to you all and the team. Um, I love it.
Yeah, thank you. I'm proud of being part of that journey for sure. Yeah.
No, I bet. I think one thing that's really clear that you've done really well is you've created a product that's really accessible but really secure. And they're two things that are really difficult to get right in the crypto world. So, talk to us about this accessibility and security trade off that we're going to talk through in the podcast. But just talk to us about that initially.
Of course. I think it's really important to understand that to achieve mass adoption in a space, things need to be simple. Because as much as I'm also a bit of a geek, and I like, to be able to, set up my own MetaMask and configure keys and, or use Ledger, things like that. I feel like most of those things are too difficult for a regular Joe, so to speak, right? And people, for those technologies to really hit the mass market, they really need to be seamless. So even if we look at our banking apps right now, they are quite seamless, they are easy to use, and that was always our goal. So on one hand, how do we create a product which is an app, really a mobile app, where you feel like on one hand you get access to things that you cannot easily get when you just operate on things that you keep at home. For example, I use Ledger myself for certain things, right? Because Xapo doesn't hold every coin. But for example, when it comes to Bitcoin, I long ago moved my Bitcoin to Xapo, all of it, and that was because on one hand I saw, by knowing Xapo deep enough, I saw that the level of security we have is unmatched, and you cannot really reproduce this at home unless you would invest hundreds or millions of dollars, really. And we can speak about that later. But then at the same time, it was about the utility, because if you keep your Bitcoin on a hardware or software wallet, one thing is security, but the other thing, it just sits there. So here, on one hand, you get interest, right, daily. You get interest both on your dollars and on your Bitcoin. And we actually, being Bitcoin bank, we actually pay those interest in Bitcoin, even if it's on your dollars. So we really, you like thrive with this, being Bitcoin first, right? So we do that on a daily basis. So that's already pretty cool. But then again, you also have utility. So it's very easy to use your debit card. You can use it with your dollars, but you can also use it with your Bitcoin. And like we spoke offline, right? It gets converted into dollars on the fly, so you feel like you pay with your Bitcoin, even though in the background we actually settle with other companies in dollars here. And then you also have other ways to utilize cryptocurrency technologies, like for example, you can transfer to us USDT, USDC. You transfer this overnight, you can transfer this during the weekend. So it's where other traditional finance, where you want to do a swift transfer, it takes few days, right? Sometimes like it takes 2-3 days, and it costs actually a lot as well. So when you do a USDC USDT transfer, it's also cheap, so that's another thing. So those are all the things that are quite cool. And then additionally, we have some additional benefits, like different investment instruments in your app. So we really want to create like this full package where you can feel like, okay, my wealth is secure, and then I get to invest into different things. And we really try to pick the products that are safe for you. We don't want you to gamble on some very risky coins, to not use the term shit coins, right? So we really want to kind of give you instruments that allow you to really invest safely in different things. Yeah.
How do you think you've done so well on the product, accessibility, security? We'll talk about the financial investment and security part a little bit later. And where do you think others have fallen short in the industry? Not necessarily to name names, but it would just be good to get an idea on what you think you've done so well and what you think others haven't done so well.
Mm. So I think there are different products when you look at technology space, but I don't know about any licensed bank that does what we do. So I know there is a bit of negativity around banks, especially in like OGs of crypto, right? There is this term, not your keys, not your coins. But actually, when you look at the majority, people still trust banks, right? If it should be like that, I'm not here to judge that, but I feel like the banks in general are supposed to provide safety for your wealth, etc. So we feel that this license allows us to really be in that space, to be regulated, I mean, there is a lot of good things of being a bank that I don't think people understand. You get audited on all of those things, on many different things, which means you by default need to keep standards very high on many different things like security, financial protection, legal compliance, right? Money laundering, all of that needs to be really top notch. Otherwise, you would basically lose your license. And then there is the fact that Xapo is a very special bank, in my opinion, because we don't use fractional reserves, which means we don't create money by lending it to another person, and that person puts it in the bank. That bank lends it to another person. Basically, there is money created out of thin air. No, we just keep all your money. We keep it invested in short-term instruments like treasury bills, etc. So that money is safe. So even if there would be this whole bank run, which most banks fear, no, we would be able to simply pay you out. That's it, right? We keep that stuff. So I feel that this licensing piece is something that is a differentiator when it comes to Zapo, because you have other crypto companies that do, send money abroad, right? They allow you to use different chains. They allow you to have a wallet, but that's quite different. And then there is how we do security. I feel that's also pretty different. And there is we use MPC to sign and secure your Bitcoin, and that's a topic that I'm happy to jump in when you when you feel ready. But I feel that is also quite an innovative approach to security comparing to the traditional multi-signature approach.
That strategic decision was actually a really important mover. Like my understanding as someone who's learning more about the business now, that was a really important move to be a differentiator in a number of different ways, to see some potential roadblocks, but actually change your business's direction, which I know this was the motivation anyway, but it's really set you apart with product security because it feels as if there are standards to adhere to that you really need to do as a bank anyway, that has kind of changed the game for you for the better.
Yes, exactly. And there's a lot of overhead of being a bank. If you are, for example, a startup, but you're not a bank, it's so much easier. But then at the same time, you can you cannot be guaranteed that company is doing things the right way, because you don't have the way to verify it. You don't have the way to see behind the doors. Well, just the fact that somebody has a license, that somebody has, like us, for example, we have a SOC 2 audit, we have KPMG audits, different types of audits. You can put that on a website and kind of brag about it almost. So yeah, that gives people guarantee of things being done in a good way.
From a 30,000-foot helicopter view again, playing that role of CTO, what do you think some of your most common engineering challenges are at Xapo?
Yes, there are multiple categories that as a CTO you need to focus, and I think that the most difficult one is choosing right thing at the right time based on where the business is. So there are things like security, making sure that there is a security culture, and this is not like, okay, we do this for a quarter. No, you need to make sure that people live it, that we have processes adjusted to the security. So not only technology, it's not enough to have only technology secure. You need to have also a level, the same level of security at the people level and the process level. So this is very important, because you might actually have very secure house, but then I don't know, you leave the keys outside outside, and someone can enter. I think this my CISO uses this phrase, right? This metaphor. So that's one thing, but then there are things like you need to make sure that your application, your platform is reliable, that your users don't get a lot of errors. It's super important to provide nice experience. Whenever there is an incident, you need to make sure that first of all you notice it immediately, second of all you resolve it the fastest you can, and make sure that there are not many of them happening. Then there is how you can set up your engineering in terms of technology and people that they deliver as fast as possible, like new features, improvement, bug fixes, things like that. Scalability is often an issue depending, where you are in the company and how many people, how many users, how much volume you have. That might be a challenge. And then cost efficiency, that is also important, because you don't want to go crazy with your infrastructure, with your architecture, have a massive cloud bill or vendor bill, and then you want to be efficient there as well. So, and then you look at that and you're like wondering, okay, what's important now? Do we take just one thing, or do we take maybe 2-3 things and park that? And this is like a quarterly conversation, really. So we usually, the way I like to work with my department is like, we set objectives for the whole year that are a bit more high level, ambitious, but then on a quarterly basis we really focus, okay, we want to focus on this, those are our targets, those are our OKRs, and we try to nail it. And of course, at the same time, we are working with product on improving the product, providing new features, fixing bugs. So um, yeah, the biggest challenge is really making sure that you use people's time efficiently, that you focus on the right things.
Yeah. Prioritization. I think every single point that you mentioned in there, from security, building a security culture, through to reliability, making sure you're accessible, obviously that's user centric, to scalability, they're all key. They're all key in different areas, and that's your job to balance that, and set some balance within the team, right? Um, so a tough job, but I think it's probably the roundabout time to focus on some of this security stuff. So you've mentioned financial investment, you've mentioned MPC. Let's touch on MPC, as in, what is MPC? Let's touch on why you use that over other security initiatives, and explain those two as well, or multiple initiatives.
Yes. So if you think about signing Bitcoin transactions, there is always some kind of security measure needed, right? So you can have, for example, your Bitcoin in your hardware wallet, and then your hardware wallet helps you sign the transaction. You put your PIN, and you can withdraw your transaction, right? Or do something with your Bitcoin. So that's okay until your either device is compromised, or someone gets hands on your keys, right? Or your dog eats your keys. I mean your paper with with your keys, right? So um, you need to be careful. Seriously, if you want to do self custody, I'm not saying this is a wrong thing. I'm just saying that um, there has been $484 billion lost in Bitcoin, right, so far. So that's a huge number. That's $500 billion almost. So that, to me, is a data point showing that self custody is not for everybody, right? I'm not saying it's wrong or good. So then, when you have products that provide custody for you, they usually use technologies that help you distribute signing of transactions. So the more common one, and this is actually what Xapo was using in the past, when we were still a custodian, was a multi-signature approach. And actually, in simple terms, you can imagine having a safe where you have 5 keys to that safe, and you need 3 out of 5. For example, you need 3 out of 5 keys to open that safe at the same time. But to open that safe, you need to take those 3 out of 5 keys and hand it to a coordinator that then opens the safe. So, which means that at that moment, those 3 keys are kind of visible or constructed, which means they can be there is a possibility of being compromised. MPC is a very interesting technology that allows you to approach opening of the safe in a different way. So imagine a safe where you have 1 key, but that key is actually cut or divided into 3 pieces, and those 3 pieces are given to 3 different people. And there is a way for those people to work together without ever reconstructing the key, but still opening the safe in a safe way. So there is a way where there is a mechanism verifying, okay, those are valid pieces, but there is never at any given point a moment where that key is fully reconstructed. And that's really the how the MPC protocol works, right? So this is something that was invented by Dr. Yao, as a Chinese computer scientist, in 1982. So it's actually quite you can say an old technology. But it's it has been a while till there was enough computing power to really be starting using that in a commercial way. He actually received a Turing reward in 2000 for that. Which is like a really Nobel Prize for computer science, right? This is the most honorable award you can get. So it has been a big deal, and now you fast forward from 82, or almost, I mean, more than 40 years, and we are using that in production, so to speak. But then Xapo is cool in this way that we use that MPC, so we have indeed three shards of a private key distributed geographically in different geolocations, and then what is interesting is actually those shards, they rotate every 60 seconds, which means that in practice, if you would want to compromise that, you would have to get hands on all three shards in different geolocations within 60 seconds, right? So that's, let's say, not impossible, but let's say it's very hard, right? And then you can actually add another layer. We added another physical layer on top of that. We have a military bunker, which we actually shown to some journalists recently. And yeah, this is like really guards with guns and like super incredible setup. When I was there, I tell you not. I mean, sorry, I tell you, it feels like being in a Mission Impossible movie. You walk around and you like incredibly secure mechanisms. It weighs you, it scans your eye, it checks if everything is okay. Nobody has all the keys to do anything, and yeah, and this just protects one shard, and then we have two more. So yeah, I mean, like, this is what I was saying, right? If you want to have this level of security at home, well, you need to invest millions of dollars, but you can actually have that just by depositing your Bitcoin with us and paying the subscription. So I feel it's quite cool. That's the
I
best.
think it's cool. It
Yeah.
is some Mission Impossible stuff. It's also some Johnny English stuff. Hopefully not as
Mm.
daft. If you've seen Johnny
I've
English,
seen Johnny English.
you've got the shards in there. But I knew that was coming, so I've obviously got the joke out of my mind. But I think it's some really interesting security that you've adopted, and that was actually going to be one of my questions. Is in the MPC protocol, or the idea behind it, I think is a fascinating idea to understand how it originated from 1982 to where we are today and how you're using it. I think is great. I think it's great.
Yeah, I think it's incredible. Yeah, and I believe this is the future. I've seen some other apps already using MPC, but still majority of the companies that work with Bitcoin, they still use multi-signature approach, which is secure, right? But it's not the same level of security. And what is interesting actually about MPC is also that this is quantum resistant, so it cannot be hacked by quantum computing. So that's also great. It's future proof, so to speak.
Yeah. Okay. Love it. Security is a massive part of your business. I think it's one of the things that I've been speaking about so much this year on the podcast. I think we've seen a number of players in the AI space, you joining us from the crypto space. We have more people joining us from the crypto space, and everyone's talking about security right now. It is one of the number one things that people really need to think about when it comes to safeguarding their business, safeguarding money. I think is super critical.
Yeah, you want to protect your wealth, and yeah, of course, you want to put it in a place where you can trust, when you can trust the company. And like I said in the beginning, to me, Self custody is challenging. You can do it, but I had an interesting conversation with Wences, our founder, about that, and he's right. He's saying that with his experience, it's just a matter of how much, right? It's the matter of the number. So there are people like that, let's say, and of course the number is different for every person, but he says like there are people that are, okay with holding their money by themselves, let's say in a hardware wallet. So they are okay with $1,000, $10,000, then at $100,000, like, maybe I should start looking. And then maybe for other people it will be $1 million, $10 million. But eventually, and Bitcoin, as we know, keeps appreciating in value. But then eventually everybody has a threshold where they're like, keeping it at
Yeah,
home.
100%.
And that's one thing, right? Because I keep talking about, oh, maybe it's compromised, maybe someone happens to your keys. But then there is another aspect of it where you want to have it secure in a way when something happens to you, right? And then you want your children or your spouse to have access to it. So there is much more to it than just, okay, oh, you're reliable, right? Then you can take care of the keys. And it's funny because I was in the other boot camp. I mean, camp, sorry, not boot camp. I was in the other camp where I was initially like, oh no, I'm okay keeping it at home. But then eventually, yeah, I converted because I'm myself sitting in the company that focuses on that,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, but I've seen the
Spot on.
value in this. Yeah.
100%. I do want to touch on something that you said that I do think is really important. Creating a security culture, not just for a quarter, but for a year plus. Help me understand how you actually do that, how you help people create a mindset to be able to do that.
Yeah. And I'm doing this for 18 years, being in tech space, and I feel like changing the culture in the company is still the most difficult thing to do, right? So security is one thing, but you have to do the same with quality, with data, with different things. So the way I have seen this working really well, where you can actually make permanent shift, is through, on one hand, mm, setting up processes in a way where it helps to nurture that, so that it stays in people's mind. Because if you, for example, do a presentation or do a nice talk, even if you do it once per quarter or once per 6 months, people quickly forget about it, right? And they move on to their daily work. No, but you need to make sure that you set certain targets, that you set certain health metrics, where you really want to make sure that, okay, for example, vulnerabilities, right? We need to make sure that, first of all vulnerabilities that were legacy are cleared, right? So based on severity, you prioritize as, okay, get rid of the criticals, then highs, then the rest. But then you also need to make sure that whenever a new vulnerability is found, because that is a continuous thing, right? Hackers find vulnerabilities in libraries, new versions with fixing that are being released. You need to use new versions. It's actually a cycle. So for example, you need to make sure that you act quickly on that before you get exploited. So you need to have certain SLAs in place and certain mechanisms also for developing code, where if, for example, developer doesn't update the library, his build is blocked, right? So that the automation helps you out. And then there is a lot of repetition in all of that, and making sure also different teams have targets around the things that you want to change. It can be security, but can also be, for example, number of bugs, for quality, or some kind of other aspects, when you, for example, want to change the data culture. So there are multiple layers that you need to use to really shift the mindset and make it permanent, and you need to keep talking. So one of the objectives, that's why for us, one of the objectives is making sure that security is treated as a first class citizen. This is how we call it. And then we have different OKRs around that, different processes, and making sure that whenever we work on a new feature, our security team is involved, and it's
Love it.
a dialogue. But it's tough. It's tough, I tell you. Yeah.
I'm gonna steal a couple of things from that. I agree. To make it permanent, you do have to drive a level of consistency. It can't be one presentation. It needs to be that consistent messaging, follow up, processes, SLAs, observability, and it goes on and on and on. And from your perspective, probably taking that helicopter view, you need to look at the whole platforms, teams generally, and look at what you need to introduce across the business. I think any leader needs to do that, not just in security. I think generally, with like a culture change, it needs to be regular, often, consistent to get that permanent nature into
Yeah,
a
exactly.
business.
And you also need your leaders buying. I feel like it's
Yes.
you really need to make sure that they buy into it, and then they help you cascade it, and they work with their leaders, and their leaders work with their teams. And without that, I think it's very hard. But like, if you put all those pieces together, yeah, then the magic happens. This is what I have seen in the
Yeah.
past years working for that.
Spot on. Okay. Tell us where Xapo are going next 12 months, where you can tell us where they're going. Tell us where they're going and what's on the radar for you guys.
Yes, there are quite a few exciting features that I cannot talk about yet, unfortunately. But they should be released end of this year, beginning of next year, that I feel will complement the whole product. So we really want to make sure, because we have built the boat, to use the metaphor that now my CEO often uses. We have been building the boat, now we are sailing the boat. But um, to align with that, we really feel that now it's more about tweaks, so really focus on the quality of the app. So we don't feel we need so many new features, right? So there are like few additions that I mentioned that will come, that will really make this thing whole. But then we really want to focus on greater user experience, like improving our UI UX, improving certain flows in the app, making sure that you, for example, maybe have more possibilities to transfer money to us and from us, like maybe supporting different chains. Right now we only support Ethereum when it comes to USDT, USDC. So those are things like that. We really want to focus on making sure people want to hold with us more money, because in the end, this is our business model. On one hand, we have a subscription model, but on the other hand, we generate money based on the amount of money being kept with us, and then we take part of it, a big part of it, and then give this to the user in form of interest rate, right? So this is how we then are thinking, okay, so what other things would really help to grow that. But other than that, the focus will be really on the quality. And so really, again, going away from just building what we have been building in last few years, to really making sure now the quality keeps improving, and you have a great experiences, your really premium experience. This is our focus. So that's one thing. But then internally, we are also focusing a lot on being back on the radar, because in the past few years we haven't really invested much into marketing. We really restarted like 1 year ago, and that's why you can see us in different conferences. Maybe you have seen us. We've been behind Trump, actually, to not make it a political thing, but we have been there. In Nashville, we've been the main sponsor of the Nashville event. So we really
And
want
you've also been on Engineers.
Sorry.
You've also been on Engineers, US election, Engineers. They're probably on par.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
Yeah, I know. No, exactly. But So what was cool about that is that we really want to support the community, right? So it's not about the politics. We don't say, this guy will win or this guy will win. But what we do is, like, we really want to invest into community, into conferences. We want to, maybe start supporting Bitcoin core developers. So there are things like that are on our mind. So that also people remember what Xapo is, because we know that the old guys in the community remember us from the custodian times, but then you could even see by talking to different people in the conferences that they thought we were sold to Coinbase entirely, while we actually, we've been building this bank in the background. So now it's time for people to know that as well. So this
Yeah,
is our focus, to really
love it.
be back out there.
Good marketing, quality over quantity in terms of features, quality generally, good user experience. That's what I'm expecting to see from you guys. For people listening, talk to us about if and where you'll be growing the team and what areas. So people are listening. Huge part of our following are software engineering focused. So hopefully they're going to come running to you guys if they're interested in what you guys are doing. But it'd be good to give us an understanding of how you'll look to grow the business if you are going to look to grow the business next year.
Yeah, definitely. With increased revenue and things like that, we definitely see areas that we want to grow. But again, like I said, we want to be smart about it, not just keep adding engineers, but actually making strategic choices there. But I would say, for people, really have an eye on our website. We have a section there with jobs, and then also on our LinkedIn page, because we regularly post things. Right now, if I remember correctly, I think there is only one opening for a data engineer, because we actually filled all the other roles in the meantime. But I'm sure there will be more openings. I have some ideas in my mind. It's just more about having budget for it. So that's that. But if you would look at the last 12 months, there is always things popping up, and we look maybe for a backend engineer. We've been looking recently for 2 front-end engineers, because we're gonna be building something new there. We filled that already, so just keep an eye on that, and then I'm sure if someone wants to be part of the journey, they will find.
Remote first business. Cool. I think for people listening, remote first business, technology focused, obviously doing some awesome stuff in the crypto space. We've had a chance to chat to Kamil, and there's some really awesome stuff. First movers in their space, but pivoted a really incredible business into being crypto native bank and continuing to build that. So Kamil, I just want to say a massive thanks for come to join us, sharing some really interesting stuff, some really interesting security stuff, a poignant topic at the moment, and you've been excellent.
Thank you, Elliot. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation. I think we touched on some really cool stuff that we should be talking about, because I do believe this is the future for
100%.
us.
For people listening, likes, shares, subscribes, all of that good stuff is needed to keep us spinning around and keep on showing you great people like Kamil and Xapo Bank. And we've just heard it from Kamil. The business will be hiring. Check in on their careers site. Watch them scattered around and plastered all over walls, billboards, etc. over the next 12
Yeah.
months. And
Yeah, for sure.
a massive thanks from you guys.
Thank you.
And a thanks from us as well. Bye for now. Hey guys, thanks for watching this episode. Massively appreciate you listening and checking in with us. If you want to find out more about us and what we're doing, please check us out on social media. What we're trying to do at Engineers is build a community to drive knowledge sharing and experiences. On Twitter, we can be found Engineers.io. It's no underscore. We've also got a website, which is engineers.io. These links will all be posted in the description.
Any feedback and comments are massively appreciated. We're always looking to improve on where we can. Thanks, guys.